responsible for your own life and your business.
So I think I always had a love for shoes, but I never thought of actually doing something with them until when I started.
Where did this concept come from?
I had been working with our global Amani ambassador.
I went to Mexico. I was actually forced to go to Mexico.
What part of Mexico?
Just past the border. I think it was San Luis or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, they snuck me across the border.
All right, just stay out of TJ, man.
And that drove me crazy because I knew what a good guy he was. And so that drives me crazy because his memories will only go on as long as we do.
All right, so part 2 of this special edition Stay Classy podcast from Vegas. And here we have Juan Loyola, who's the CEO of Amani Resorts. Right. And Juan, tell us a little bit about what you're doing in Vegas this week.
Yeah, well, we're here in Vegas to participate in the red carpet event and the Summer League events this week. We're also giving out, we're awarding some all access passes. And the other thing that we're doing is for one follower on our Instagram or Facebook page, we're going to give away an ownership package, which is a 7-day room and food and beverage at one of the private villas in one of the resorts that we're developing, and the first one that we have planned for is in 2026 is in the Bahamas, on the island of Eleuthera, and so we're excited about that, and to obviously tell the world about what we're doing. The Amani Resorts is a luxury brand that we've developed, all brand new, based on the continent of Africa. And so we've spent some time in curating, doing a lot of research and starting from scratch. So people say, oh, is it like this or is it like that? No, it's not like any of the things that they've seen before, because we're really looking at all of Africa and about 15 different groups, and we're going back in time, and we're looking at how what the culture can tell you about culinary, about architecture, about fashion, about and then of course the fine arts, furniture, all kinds of things that can come into the experience of being in a resort, a very refined experience where you have an immersion into the culture of Africa, the cultures, as there are many of them in Africa, and so we're excited about bringing that together and bringing a brand new experience to travelers around the world.
So the idea is you guys have the resort locations and you just totally immerse people in the richness of African culture. Now that seems like that, as you point out, that could be sort of complicated because Africa, as we know, West Africa, East Africa, South Africa, North Africa, different cultures, different tribes within the cultures. We were talking about before we started recording, for instance, when I've been in Kenya, there's 42, 43 tribes. So there's all these different cultures even within each country. So how do you kind of bring that holistically together and curate that experience at your resort?
That is a very good question. It's one of the things that we've worked hard to solve for is exactly that. So we have our interior designer, who's also the corporate art director. She has been spearheading for weeks a very diligent process of research, of looking at and identifying what those broad groups are, so that we can dig in. Some cultures have a lot to show in terms of architecture. Other cultures have a lot more to show in the area of culinary. And so as we bring that together, we also say, okay, let's not get tunnel vision and just looking at ourselves within our team. From the very beginning, I said we need an outside body of folks of leaders from Africa who can independently chime in as we go, and they have. There's an architectural direction we took, and we took the option that board chose, that they preferred. The names of our brands, we have Anasa, Geneda, and Agana. So these are all Anasa, Amani, Geneda, Amani. I mean, they're going to be slightly different kinds of properties. One of them is going to be a mountain resort, for example. But not the one for the Bahamas. That's a mid to large beach, coastal beachfront resort. So, and along the way, and by the way, that same board of advisors added some social groups as we were going along. We said we had about 12 of them, and they said, well, and they looked at the Northeast and they pointed out to us. They brought up things like the Nubia and Ethiopia and those areas. And so and it's just simply to make the point that we've been very careful and we've involved a lot of voices in order to make sure that we solve for authenticity and that we solve for robustness. within the brand.
It's interesting because I have heard of quite a few like resort companies. I've never honestly heard in my life of somebody who's doing what you're trying to do, which is bringing the African culture with all of its diversity, with all of its history, to sort of like, I guess you would say Western culture, and sort of immersing people in that experience. But what I wanted to ask you is like, where did this concept come from? Was this all you? Like,
No.
Like,
no.
and what was like the fascination
So-
with the culture that brought you to this point?
So that's a good question. No, the way that this is founded is one of our founding partners had been working with our global Amani ambassador, who's a lady named Kukwa Shedeboa from Ghana. And she has a whole fitness and wellness thing that she's established for many years, but they have a company called Africa With Us, and they set up these expeditions and these tours to Africa. They've been working together for years, and it was his idea, it was his innovation, and his name is Chase Barfield. And he said, well, why don't we have a hotel nearby the United States that we can bring people to, and then from there ultimately continue to book tours to Africa. That was the genesis of the idea. Once they brought me in, and then because of my hotel background and development background, and asked me to spearhead it and then run the company, we took that genesis and I said, okay, how do we make this work really well in the hotel industry? I said, okay, so let's make it high-end, let's make it luxury all across the board, first-class hotels, in order to make sure that we have that pricing power, because we're going to offer a lot within the resort.
Okay.
And then it became a global concept. So it's not about just the North American market, although the Bahamas, obviously, it's right on America's doorstep, so clearly over 93% of arrivals in the Bahamas come just from the United States. But in fact, a global brand to bring. And the funny thing that we didn't anticipate was that when we started to interact with people in Africa, outside of our company, because we have people, of course, from Africa in the company, but we found that they were asking us in any of the African countries, when are you going to put one here? And we were like, oh, it turns out that it kind of makes sense. It's a celebration of Africa, but also there's 54 countries. It takes like 12 hours to get from Casablanca in Morocco down to like Pretoria or Johannesburg in South Africa. So like any other continent, there are countries where what they are familiar with is their own country and their own cultures. So if you put a resort like that in any specific country in Africa, it has a huge draw because it's, first of all, it's a celebration of Africa, and secondly, it has the same, it drives us, the same demand drives interest in that in an African country as in any other country, and so we're happy to make that happen.
So given your experience in the hospitality industry, and you were also, correct me if I'm wrong, you were also in real estate at one time, right? Or
well, hospitality, of course, being the service version of the real estate business. Yeah. But no, I was also in energy for a few years.
in energy, okay. So
Either way, you're dealing with land issues, buildings, construction, right of way, stuff like that.
So you had an extensive resume, and then this guy comes to you with this idea. Your friend Chase comes to you with this idea and says, "Hey, he pitches this to you, this idea of African resort immersion." And like, was your first thought like, "Oh, this is definitely going to work," or were you skeptical, or how did you sort of fall in love with this concept yourself?
That's an interesting question. The fact is that I knew that it didn't exist in the market. And so that's an opportunity to, the thing that my specialty is taking a general concept and then working and assembling a team and driving it towards operations day. I mean, that's my training and my background. So the market question for me was, do I think that, first of all, does this exist in the market? If it doesn't exist in the market, should there be demand for it? And to me, having been to Africa already 6 times, always for work, it was clear to me that the answer is obvious. The answer is obvious. The economy, Africa now is kind of like China in the 90s. And so all different corners of Africa continue to grow and advance and boom. And I thought, you can look at what Africa is going to be like in 20 years, and you want to be the company that set up a resort based on the culture of that continent, because everybody either wants to learn about it or everybody wants their culture to be learned about.
How are your wings, by the way?
Oh yes.
We're on the hot and spicy
Now
podcast.
another test of my bravery.
Another
so,
test. Yeah, just give it a shot.
So this is the Carolina Reaper, which is
that sounds bad.
it is the name of the pepper, and so I've let's see how much I can suffer on this.
Because you've already been doing this today, so.
Yeah, well, I mean, we had a couple, so let me see. I'm going to test my strength.
As bad as you expected, or worse?
Yeah,
I'll give you a minute.
It's pretty rough.
So, no, that's fine. I wanted to also talk a little bit about you personally. I mean, you have obviously the resume to back up what you're doing, but at the same time, you traveled to Africa, and obviously, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, it's pretty obvious to me that you sort of fell in love with this culture at some point yourself, that you fell in love with this idea of African immersion, this at some point became your dream as well. Talk to me about what's so unique about Africa and the experiences that you had there, and kind of how that drives your passion for what you're doing.
Well, personally, it's a matter of education. What I've learned about Africa, which I'm sure as the years go and as the more we learn about the different corners of Africa, sure our children will also learn about that, like they learn about European history, Asian history, American history, whatever you have. So we weren't taught that. There are things that we weren't taught when I was a kid, and so I got to see it myself and started discovering this, the different things that I was exposed to in Africa, and realized that it's a totally untapped experience of learning, and it's learning about the world. And so, for me, that's the fascination. That's the fascination that I have, is that I discovered that nobody really. It hasn't translated well around the world what the different parts of Africa really are, and there's a huge opportunity to expose that and to bring that to the world. And I thought, well, it's going to happen one way or another. So we'll be part of that process that brings Africa, like other continents have done, to a global market.
I love that, because when I was a kid, for instance, not to go off on a side tangent, but when I thought of Africa, I always heard kind of I was thinking people starving to death, Sahara Desert, violence, all this stuff. When I first traveled to Africa when I was 18 years old, East Africa, I was in Kenya and Tanzania. I fell in love with the culture immediately. The people, the most gracious people you'll ever meet, the sense of community, the land is beautiful out there. I went on various safaris and stuff, so I really fell in love with that culture. And it seems like you, I know you've been to different places of Africa than I have, but it seems like you had a similar sort of experience, and that really drives you to this day. Those experiences still sort of fuel your motivation.
Sure. I mean, and if you're trying to make a product in a global market that's compelling, and you have personally experienced a perspective about these countries and these cultures that we don't have in the States or in Europe or anything like that. Not quite so, maybe a little, way more in Europe because they're much closer, and particularly the French. But at the end of the day, it's an undiscovered thing. So how you put it together and how you present it, the one thing you can be sure of is you're not going to be stepping on anybody's previous work, because nobody's done it. And whether somebody's tried to do it or not, they certainly haven't marketed effectively enough for any of us to know. Sure.
Last couple questions I have for you. One thing is, we keep coming back to this theme, which is that you and your partners essentially took an idea that was a new idea. You discovered a niche in the market. You discovered something that no one else was doing, and then you took it and ran with it and were successful with it. For people out there, because we interview a lot of sort of younger entrepreneurs on this podcast. For people out there who are thinking about doing something like that, or maybe there's a kind of a hole in the market, or an idea that just hasn't been tapped into by anybody else yet, something that no one else is doing, but they're afraid to go after it because they might fail. What's your best advice for people who are in that kind of position?
Start. So you have a product or an idea, and you think that there's going to be a market for it. So start testing that.
Yeah.
Talk to your neighbor. Talk to people you know. Talk to people that they introduce you to. Talk to new people who don't know you, and test it out on them. Test out the idea. See, because at the end of the day, you're just looking at, you're talking to a subset of your market. And so get some confidence by trying it out, by going up, try to fail 10 times in a row, and see if you can pull it off.
Yeah. Was there ever a point where, like, in your history as an entrepreneur, like your journey, where a particular failure that kind of sort of galvanized you to get to where you are now?
Oh, failures abound. A particular one, as an entrepreneur, yeah. I mean, I made technical errors. For a long time I was in consulting, and development consulting, and an error you can make is to focus too much. And it's an error that I made, and I've seen other entrepreneurs make this. Don't focus so much on the storefront that you forget to go and make the watches you're selling. Don't forget that you have a product. Spend your time with your product. Spend your time getting really good at your practice, and don't just focus on how much exposure is the front end of the shop. Think about it in terms of brick and mortar. You're out there and you have a storefront and you want to get the word out, but you're competing against people who are busy. If you're a watchmaker, as an example, who are busy making watches, and you have to see to that. So keep improving your trade, because that's what your client base wants to know. That's what they're going to find valuable. So keep working on building that value, and let the market respond. And sometimes I've seen entrepreneurs, I did it myself, get a little bit too hung up on that storefront activity, and you can kind of get tempted to go, well, I built it, let's see if they come. If you find yourself in that mindset, stop. Stop. Keep working it. Keep working one by one, every customer, every potential customer, because at the end of the day, it's not products, it's not money, it's not buildings. None of that amount to active ingredients in business. The only active ingredient is people. Nothing moves unless two people agree that they're going to move, that money is going to move. That product doesn't move unless people agree. So it's all about trust, and it's all about staying with your whatever it is that whatever value you're proposing to the market. Devote yourself to that, and let your market know that you're devoting yourself to that.
Never stop building your value.
Never stop building.
So last thing before I let you go is let people know like website and like how we can find get involved, and if people want to experience this themselves, like where to go.
Sure. So you can find us on Facebook, AmaniResorts.com, and I'll spell it because it's the habit I have. AMANI Resorts, and on Instagram as well, AmaniResorts.com, and we are actually doing something really special. We have an ownership package, which we're going to award to one follower over the next couple of weeks, which is 7 days in one of the private villas of probably the Bahamas resorts, probably the one that will open first. That's planned for 2026, and it includes room and food and beverage, and it's a chance to come down and see the property and experience that immersion.
All right, definitely got to get in on that.
Yeah.
Throwing my name in the hat.
There you
All right,
go.
thank you so much, Ron. Really appreciate your time.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks. That's a wrap, guys.
Did you subscribe yet? If you like our content, it's the easiest way to support the pod. Hit the subscribe button on the bottom right and keep it classy.
Stay Classy podcast. Here we go. Episode 84, special edition here in Vegas. We're with Colin Shomsky. Colin, welcome to Vegas. This is your second time, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And what have you been up to so far?
Not much. Just kind of just chilling.
Okay, nothing crazy?
Nothing crazy yet.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, emphasis on yet. All right, so tell us what you're doing out here, and tell us a little bit about the brand.
So my brand is Chummy's Customs. I do custom shoes for brands, athletes, and celebrities. So,
Okay. And how long have you been doing that for?
I've been doing custom shoes for about 5 years now, but I've really taken it serious and doing it full time for the last 6 months, 7 months now.
And you're based out of Miami right now?
Yeah, Miami, Florida, yep.
Okay, but you're originally from Cleveland?
I'm originally from Cleveland. I graduated in architecture from Kent State.
Okay.
And then after I graduated, I moved out to LA for a year. And then I moved to Miami.
And then Miami. So what inspired, so like you kind of undersold it, because like the shoes you design, they're not just any shoes. They're very like customized with the theme of like sports
Right,
jerseys.
yeah.
So like how did you come up with the idea like, hey, like shoes, like, I mean, maybe that's been a passion of yours for a while, but like, like to actually blend that with sports paraphernalia and actually bring those two ideas together. Like what was the instigation for that?
I think I saw other creators creating jerseys out of like shorts, or turning jerseys into shorts and then the jackets. So I came up with the idea of to put on a shoe around the Super Bowl. Because Kristen Jujucic, I think that's how you say her name, but she did a jersey jacket for Taylor Swift, and that blew up. So I thought, why not put it on a pair of shoes?
Which one did Taylor Swift perform at? Was that last year? Or was that the year
Yeah, I
before?
think last year, yeah.
So I'll have to fact check on that. But so you got the idea from that, and then you kind of went and ran with it. But like, did you? Because you said your degree was in architecture, right? Like, so you didn't really have like, correct me if I'm wrong, like a very big like entrepreneurial business background at that point. But you just decided like, screw it, let's go for it.
Pretty
like,
much, yeah.
Like what gave you that kind of courage?
I think, I mean, I wanted to be an architect up until like my junior year. And then I think my senior year, I kind of really started to fall out of love with it. To me, I think architecture to me is too like coded and too like strict. But I feel like with shoes, you can do almost anything. So I think the boundaries and creative freedom is a lot more.
What was the biggest challenge at the beginning with the business? Was it like raising capital? Was it like just promotion? Like what was the biggest challenge at the
I
beginning?
think it was definitely promotion and just, I didn't really know what I was doing.
Yeah.
But just like going day by day and just trying to get better every single day. Eventually stuff you start to figure out, and then something will click eventually if you keep trying, and then you go.
You learned by doing. Were there any
That's the only way.
mentors, coaches that like guided you, or was this kind of a solo mission?
So yeah, when I moved out to LA, I met a guy named Ruben Barraza.
Who?
Ruben Barraza.
Okay.
He goes by Major Waves. But yeah, he is like kind of like one of the originals, I would say, in the custom shoe game. So he was big before COVID, like 2016, 2017, where he kind of just started a bunch of trends that took off. And then now he's more in like the back end business kind of stuff. But yeah, he's definitely been there for me if I have questions about how do I do this or what's the best way to do this, but even just around business too. Like how would I handle this brand deal, or how would I respond to this person? So just little things like that, I can always like kind of fall back on him.
Now I feel like there's a balance between like mentorship and like, you know, taking good advice, and also at the same time believing in yourself and you know, maybe sometimes not listening to the negativity around you. Like what's the balance been for you where it's like you believe in yourself, this idea, even with other people like maybe not always on board with it, and taking advice and like listening to others?
Yeah, I think what I always try to tell myself is like, no one's like, you're your own person. So like they're never gonna truly understand where your vision is or where you're trying to go. So just like at the end of the day, like the last word is on you pretty much. So
yeah. Where do you see this thing going? I mean, does it stop with kind of like right here, or do you kind of have like a second wind in you, or like what's the next wave of this?
I think right now it's just starting to pick up traction finally.
Yeah.
But just continue to make shoes for celebrities, brands, and then probably eventually need to get someone else to help me out on my team, because right now it's just me creating.
Do you have any employees
shoes,
or no?
Shoes,
Wow.
the content. So it's eventually going to get to a point where I won't be able to do it all by myself.
Yeah.
So,
Do you and you're in the U.S., right? Just in the U.S. right now. Would you like ever consider going international or something, or?
yeah, I mean, I ship international sometimes, but I think eventually to get global, I don't know how, but we'll figure it out.
So, like, this is kind of a silly question, but like, why shoes? Like, was this something that like you've been obsessed with for, like, since you were a kid, or like, what was the point in your life where like I want to like do something with shoes?
Yeah, I think in middle school, all my friends were into all like the basketball shoes. Like I remember like the KDs, all like the LeBrons. So I think I always had a love for shoes, but I never thought of like actually doing something with them until like when I started in 2019.
Okay. And being from Cleveland, I could be wrong about this, but are you a big sports fan? Like, is that like, because I know Cleveland is a sports town, and like what was the sort of the passion behind like the sports side of it?
Yeah. Well, I grew up playing sports, basketball, football, and baseball. And then I grew up watching LeBron too. So basketball was my favorite sport. He was my favorite player growing up. And he was a big inspiration to me and kind of like an idol to me.
LeBron? Yeah.
But yeah, I just see like his passion for everything and how professional and how he handles himself too.
You still like him that he's on the Lakers or not?
I do,
anymore?
yeah. I do.
No, LeBron's great. Now, was there, like, I'm sure there's been like a lot of like different challenges. Like, talk through a little bit about like sort of the discipline and the passion that you've maintained that's pushed through maybe the times where this wasn't going so well, like some of the speed bumps in the road.
Yeah, I think what I try to tell myself is like, if things aren't going well, eventually, like it goes in waves. So I feel like if you're at the bottom, eventually stuff is gonna have to start turning upwards. One of the big challenges for me was moving out to LA. I went with a couple people that I went to school with, but just leaving all my friends and family behind to just pursue something that I didn't know that was gonna work out or not. That was kind of a really hard thing for me to do, just because growing up in Ohio my whole life, it's like a whole nother world over here on this side.
Do you feel like that was kind of necessary for you to sort of sever those ties, for you to take that next step into the entrepreneurship?
I think that was probably, it was a hard decision, but I felt like it was the best decision.
Yeah.
Just, I feel like you have to get out of your hometown to actually like experience and grow as a person and also as a business as well.
Beyond like the business and financial aspect of it, you know, obviously we're all in business to make money, but like what really like drives your passion for the industry and what really like drives you towards your future goals? Like what's like the motivation behind you? Like where does that come from?
I think I've always been a creative person, and then being in sports, just like being disciplined and having that discipline to like continue when stuff does get hard. I think that's been a big part of where I am today.
Okay, what sports did you play again?
Basketball. I played basketball throughout high school, and then I stopped playing football like 5th grade, then baseball like 8th grade before high school or something like that.
Yeah, sports is so important, right? Because it teaches you like teamwork, working with others, but also like teaches you like you know, doing hard things is a good thing, and like, you know, pushing through the adversity. But what I wanted to ask you was like when you talk to us about some of the specific like kind of highlight products or some of the things coming out that you're really excited about, like something that you're pushing right now that you want people to know about.
It would be the jersey shoes, which I cut up a football jersey and then stick it on or re-sew it back onto the shoe. I recently did a project for Justin Timberlake in the TD Garden, home of the Boston Celtics. I did a pair for Morgan Wallen in US Bank Stadium, home of the Minnesota Vikings. And then I also am working on a project with the Philadelphia Eagles. They sent me a game-worn jersey and game-used football to use to cut up into eight pairs of shoes out of the one jersey and the one football.
How's Justin Timberlake doing after his incident?
Yeah, I know.
I'm sure you've been talking about that. But no, seriously though, like those are some big names you're working with. Like, what's it like working with people of that caliber?
It feels kind of weird. Not weird, but like it kind of feels surreal.
Yeah.
A little bit, just because when I first started, that's who I wanted to work with or create things for. So
and now you're actualizing it.
So it's like, I don't know, it's kind of surreal feeling in a way.
Yeah, you like dreamt it for so long, and now it's your reality.
Fruition, yeah.
Yeah. Who else do you want to work with? Anybody up there?
Definitely LeBron. Definitely the Kelsey brothers too, because they're from Cleveland as
Travis
well.
and Jason Kelsey.
Who else? Taylor Swift.
Well, yeah, if you connect the Kelseys, then you connect the Taylor Swift. Yeah, there you go.
But yeah, just like a lot of musicians like Drake, Travis Scott, and then also sports teams like the Lakers, Miami Dolphins, Miami Heat.
All right. Well, Drake, if you're listening, hit up Colin. Well, we got to close, but like tell people one more time, like how can we find your stuff? Like tell us your website, your socials, how we can get in touch with you.
So my Instagram and TikTok is @_chummies, _CHUMMYS, and my website is chummiescustoms.com.
All right. Colin, thanks so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Enjoying this episode? Subscribe for more content on finding your own path to success. Every subscriber makes a huge difference to the pod, and we're grateful for everyone. And don't forget to throw us a classy like and comment too to let YouTube know that you're a fan of our stuff. Now back to your regularly scheduled podcasting.
All right, third interview of the day, Stay Classy podcast here in Vegas, the NBA Summer League, and here we have Mark Vermillion. Did I say it right?
Said it right.
Awesome, man. I was working on that one before the recording. So, like, tell us a little bit about what brings you to Vegas. I mean, you're here to talk about House of Pickleball. People who don't know about your brand, give us the spiel.
Yeah, so came out here for the NBA Summer League event and to do this podcast. House PickleBall is a paddle and lifestyle brand for Gen Z and millennials, the next generation of players, and we're based in New York City, where we do events and pickleball rallies.
Okay, so you play pickleball yourself, I assume, right?
Yeah, I play a lot.
Did you like start playing tennis, or did you transition to pickleball, or what?
Yeah, so I grew up playing tennis. I was always a big paddle and racket sports guy. Runs in my family. So when I heard about pickleball, I just figured I would be good at it because the tennis skills would transfer over. I saw a lot of people in New York City playing it versus tennis. Like I had not played tennis in the city in like the 5 years I lived there. So that was how I got started.
I'm based in San Diego. It seems like at least in the West Coast in the last few years, I get a sense that pickleball is on the rise in popularity. Do you get the sense that's like a nationwide trend, or has this been going on for a while?
Definitely. It's been slowly burning for a while, but actually the fastest growing demographic of players is that 18 to 35 group, which is our target audience.
18 to 35?
Yep. They're growing 230% year over year.
Okay.
So it's really starting to catch on with the younger generations.
But you weren't doing it, you've only been doing this for what, like a year and a half, you said? Or?
Yeah.
Okay, year and a half. And what were you doing before that?
I was doing tech sales.
Tech sales. Okay. That's a big jump, tech sales to pickleball.
Yeah, so House PickleBall, our primary function is we're an e-commerce company. So all my tech sales roles were selling e-commerce and marketing software. So after a couple years of selling to marketing leaders, in the e-commerce industry, I really learned their problems, their pain points, and just a lot about how to run an e-commerce operation. So it made the transition a lot easier.
Did you leave strictly because you were inspired to start House Pickleball, or was it also like dissatisfaction with your previous role, a combination of the two? Like what was the genesis for like, hey, I should leave my stable 9-to-5 and go start a pickleball company?
I got laid off. It was not a choice of mine. I loved my job. I just left a job I had for a few years to go to a bit of a riskier, more of a startup operation. And after 6 months, a lot of people got laid off, and I was included in that group. So
that's the risk of a startup.
It was forced on me. What was it?
I said that was the risk of a startup, though, right?
I took that risk. It was really fun while it lasted. I got to travel literally around the world, including out here to Vegas. But when the ride was over, it was over. So it's
kind of like your streak at the casinos the other day, right? Like it's fun while it lasts, and then when it goes downhill real fast.
Yeah, you saw me ride that.
ride
the roller coaster.
That's okay.
Up, and then
we're learning blackjack out here. We're learning blackjack.
We should live stream that.
We should live stream that.
That would have been entertaining.
I'm breaking even right now. Let's see about tonight. So I wanted to ask you, like, there was obviously, I'm sure, some eyebrow raising and people that you knew when you're like, hey, I'm going to do this. I'm going to start this company. I'm not going to go back to, a job in tech sales. How did you kind of push past like skepticism from others, maybe even like a bit of self-doubt in sort of pushing this idea?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know. I still feel like I haven't totally pushed past it, honestly, both the self-doubt and skepticism from others. We're still a one-man operation. It's just me. I have help through freelancers and other people I contract, but every day I kind of have to still deal with that, both internally and externally. But I would say just, it's the wins start to pile up, and as they do, it gives you a lot of confidence.
Yeah.
So like at this point, we've worked with some large brands like Cheez-It and Barber, and it's like whenever I'm kind of doubting myself and saying like is what I'm doing actually like the right thing to be doing, I just look back on some of the successes that we've had, and I use that to keep propelling myself forward because I know more are coming.
You build those little wins, it kind of stacks on each other, it gives you momentum.
Yeah. Definitely.
Do you think you'll do this for the rest of your life, or like do you see this transitioning into some other opportunity?
Yeah, I think the great thing about entrepreneurialism is you can do multiple things, and like it's more of that mindset of being creative, being industrious. I could very well see myself running House PickleBall for the rest of my life and defining for our generation what the sport means to us. So yeah, I really could see myself being a lifelong owner operator of this business.
Now, from talking to you the last few days since we met here in Vegas, I know for a fact that you have tremendous work ethic, that you work your ass off, that you apply yourself, and that you have like a very intense focus on your goals and objectives. Very single-minded. Like you got the blinders on, you're honed in a good way. And my question is like, have you like always been like this, or was there an event, maybe multiple events that sort of maybe like pushed you out of a rut, galvanized you, got you to the level of discipline and focus you're at now?
Yeah, no, I would say I was not born like this. In school, I always struggled to focus. It's really something that, and thank you for the compliment about my work ethic, by the way. It's something that I really had to develop. It's a skill just like any other skill. I would say there's events in my life like, being laid off, like seeing, things not going the way I wanted to with the business, where you really have to look inside yourself and be like, okay, what could I have done better here? Because when you're running your own business, the buck stops with you. Like there's no one's coming to save you. So I would say, yeah, through my career, through some of the failures I've had, it's really taught me like you gotta dig a bit deeper sometimes.
That's interesting. You said nobody's coming to save you. I feel like in entrepreneurship, like trying to run my own business now, I've encountered that where it's like at the end of the day you can make like a litany of excuses as to why things don't work out, but the reality is the reality of life is that nobody really cares. Like at the end of the day, it's like, did you do it or did you not do it? And it seems like you've kind of internalized that yourself to the point where you are going to make it happen regardless of those external circumstances. You don't make excuses. You're not like going to, complain about like, oh, I didn't have this or I didn't have that, or I'm a one-man operation. Like you're just going to try to make it happen regardless of the external circumstances.
Yeah, making excuses, I think it's really easy, and I still do it, and I have to catch myself and stop myself from doing it, because at the end of the day, you're responsible for your own life and your business. So you kind of learn after a while. It's like, oh, I can make that excuse to make myself feel better about something that didn't go my way. But no one really wants to hear it, especially when you're working for yourself and the person that you may be making that excuse to or complaining to doesn't really affect them. It only affects you. So you really kind of learn pretty quickly that it just does you no good. And I'm not perfect, far from it. Some days I'm not working as hard as I could be. I feel that, but that's the nice thing about every day that you wake up. It's just a new opportunity to get back in there and try to do a little bit better every day.
Here's a curveball. What do you think is the most sort of underrated or like not talked about lesson in business that you have found to be valuable in your experience since starting House of PickleBall? So like something that is been most crucial for you that you think doesn't get enough like attention or that people don't talk about?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of advice for young entrepreneurs and businesses out there that's very standardized advice about how to do things, but every business and every founder has their own story or things about them that make them unique in some way, and that's what people want to see. Like I make a lot of content that is very centered around like building in public and telling that story, building that narrative about our brand, and it's very unique to me. It's my story as an entrepreneur, a founder from New York City, and what that took when it started with me bringing nets down to the courts and inviting people to come play and providing them the paddles, and that may not be the playbook for everyone, but you really got to double down on what makes you unique and not see it as like, oh, no one cares. Like it's actually your strength and whatever that is. So that would be my biggest takeaway so far from this journey.
What is your long-term, other than building this like successful, like as a structural, successful, thriving financial business, but like what is sort of the more intangible goal you have for yourself, for this business, for the future when it's all said and done?
Yeah, I think I want to always be building community, and a lot of people say building community, especially brands, but what I mean is tangibly getting people out there, in this case, playing pickleball. Maybe in 10 years, another incredible sport pops up that is getting people out there socializing and exercising. So I think that's gonna be my North Star throughout my career is how is whatever I'm doing, how am I using social media or content to push people into the real world where they're socializing, getting to know other people, making new connections. That I think no matter what I'm doing, whether it's House Pickleball or something else, that's always going to be what's guiding me because that's what makes me feel good. Like I've seen relationships start on the pickleball court at my events, and that's really a fulfilling thing. And money comes and goes, but those types of feelings like really last.
All right, future girlfriend pickleball. Okay, got it. But seriously though, like, what do you think is fundamentally the passion behind what you do? Is it the sort of like keeping people active, like building connections? Like, what is it about pickleball? Like, that's just like kind of a shot in the dark.
Yeah, I think it's something it's so grassroots how it's sprung up, especially in New York City. Like our brand very much is based in New York City, and what I mean by that is that we really lean into that in the branding and the content because New York City is a place where there's not much space, and New York City pickleball players they're very industrious in their own way, setting up courts on cracked blacktop versus in the suburbs. Maybe there's really nice, whether they're public courts or private courts. So in New York City, there really is something special like in that community, and like I just love being a part of that community and being out there every day. So for me, it was kind of something that I naturally gravitated to, especially with my racket and paddle sports background.
Awesome. All right, now here's the hard part: you gotta eat your wing and pick a spice.
Yeah. So
tell us what spice you're gonna pick.
Let's go with. I'm gonna try this one again. This is the last dab from this Hot Ones box here. So it's pretty small. I guess because it's pretty powerful, but
yeah, you probably picked the worst one.
Yeah, I'll give this one a go.
Bold man. It's kind of like the smaller the scorpion, the more powerful the sting.
Yeah. All right, I'm putting a pretty decent amount on there. At least I think so. All right, here we go. Last dab. Cheers.
Still alive?
I can already feel it coming.
All right. Well, in closing, tell people who are interested, like how can we, get a hold of your product? How can we follow what you're doing? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, we can be found on Instagram at House PickleBall or on TikTok at House PB. Our website, housepickleball.com. We sell paddles. We just launched a new paddle. We're going to be coming out with apparel. We have a newsletter, which is very focused around our events. If you live in New York City, that's where they're happening right now. Hopefully, someday soon, we'll be expanding to more cities. But yeah, that's housepickleball.com and at House PickleBall on Instagram.
Go play pickleball, people. Mark,
Exactly.
Get a glass of water, and thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thanks,
Appreciate it.
Steve.
Awesome. Thank you.
Hey there, classy viewers. Thanks for listening to our podcast. We're dedicated to providing you with quality content that inspires and brightens your day. But keeping it classy can be expensive. If you enjoy our content, we're asking for your support for the podcast using the donation link in the description below. Donations mean the world to us, and even as little as $5 can make a huge difference in helping us make this podcast a reality. Plus, donors are added to our shortlist to be the first to receive exclusive offers on merch, extra content, and even chances to appear on the pod. Anything you can give would truly be appreciated. Now get back to enjoying the rest of the podcast, and as always, stay classy.
All right. Dennis Postema.
Yes,
Nailed
sir.
it. All right. Stay Classy podcast. We're here in Vegas still with the Summer League. This is our my fourth interview today. Dennis, really excited to have you on the show. And one thing I wanted to ask you is, you run 20, 30 businesses or something. What's your favorite one and why?
Ooh,
Your favorite
that's
business.
actually a really good question. I would say right now, technically I would say Postema Consulting is, because it embodies everything that entrepreneurs and thought leaders and how I can help other people. So even though it involves Motivation to Success TV, Motivation to Success Publishing, when I go in there and I do something with Postema Consulting, I can see, okay, what does Steve need for his business? Like, does he need help with payroll? Does he need help with marketing? Does he need a funnel? Does he need social media management? So the cool thing about Postman Consulting is we kind of embody that, and then I have teams that I kind of like start from the top and just spread it out with my teams and my different companies.
So it's consulting. I feel like is a very generalized practice. So like it can be applied to so many different areas. It's not like a niche business. I mean, you do have niche businesses, but that's kind of the broad overview one that covers them all.
Absolutely.
So like, tell me a little bit about like what kind of like people you work with, what kind of businesses you work with, and that sort of thing.
Thought leaders, coaches, entrepreneurs, personal trainers, all of that. So
you give advice to the people who give advice to other people.
That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, I like to give some advice on my own, but also, I give advice to people who give advice to other people. That's a good way to explain it, yeah.
What's like, how long have you been doing consulting? I imagine that sprang out of you already having your other businesses.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, realistically, I've probably been doing consulting for 22 years, but started with post-traumatic insurance and investments when I was doing financial planning and going through that, and then I just started evolving into, we opened up a tax business, we do lending, we do all different things. So we started opening other businesses that helped people where there were problem areas where people were losing money or they needed help, and that kind of just expanded into, that's why it was hard to, I'm with post-traumatic accounting. Well, I don't need accounting. Well, that doesn't help you, right? So let me find out where I can help you and what need and what problem I can solve.
When and why did you start your very first business?
Oh, very good question. So I was 23. I found out there were better products, and
You're 23.
Yeah, I was 23, and
Wow.
I figured out. So I've been in doing financial planning for 3 years, and I figured out there were better products and better things out there for my clients. And once I found that out, like my production just plummeted. So it just because of where I was
Your
at.
heart wasn't in it, or?
Well, because I knew I could get better products from
Yeah.
my clients. So then I just was like, okay, well, I'm 23. I'll just start it. Why not? And I just went for it. I rented a little place out of my dad's shop, and it was, if you saw how big it was compared to what it is now, because I eventually bought the building, it's amazing. The difference in, but just growth, how it works.
At that point, before you had started all the other like enterprises, like what gave you like the sort of self-belief or like thought I can do this? I don't need to stay where I'm at. I can go out and do this thing on my own.
Actually, that's a great question, because what I did is everything I put into sports and working out and everything that led up to that point, once I realized that I wasn't going to go to the NBA, I mean, this is probably the closest thing, Summer League here.
Summer League, yeah.
Summer League podcast, right?
Yeah, it's Summer League.
Yeah, so once I realized I wasn't going to go to the NBA, I just shifted my focus, and everything I was doing was like watching ESPN, studying that. And I was always a competitor, but then I just shifted that, because it's not like I was an academic icon or anything by any means. So I just shifted all that, all my love for sports into my current career, and then it just started expanding. And then I became a student and just continued to personally develop from there on. I mean, I watched my first Brian Tracy CD or listened to my first Brian Tracy CD when I was 20, and that was life-changing. So,
were you sort of like somebody who was always competitive with others, or was it more about like competing with yourself to like be better than the version you were yesterday kind of person?
yeah, I'm usually 100% competing with myself. How can I improve? I am scared to death that when I pass away, my maker's going to be like, hey, Dennis, you gave it about this amount, and that scares me to death. So every day I try to improve that much better. And when I look back, I want to have a legacy of helping people. Anybody can make money. Anybody can, go out and be successful to an extent if you learn the right tools. There's enough tools, I should say, not anybody. You got to get the discipline. But once you really get that drive and you constantly improve daily and you realize that you can make a difference, that really will push you further. And I love like the old Michael Jordan, like if you watch The Last Dance, where he goes in and he's like, he always has that creative, competitive, whatever he needs to do to create that competitive niche, whether it's against another player or saying, making something up in his head. I love doing that stuff. Yeah.
Seems like you're trying to be the person now in the present that others will be remembered for. Remembered for later.
Yes.
And you're trying to carve out a legacy that'll go beyond you, beyond your lifetime.
Yep.
And that seems like it's represented through all the businesses you do, because it's all about helping other people. It's like the consulting, especially, I think, is the best example of that.
Yeah, 100%.
It's about teaching other people to pursue their own dreams, their own passions. Yeah. Was there a particular galvanizing moment for you in your life where like maybe it could be like a chip on your shoulder or like a source of like strong source of motivation? Because I mean, doing what you're doing like on a daily to day basis, it's got to be grueling, it's got to be rough. But is there something in the back of your mind that just keeps you going when things are low?
Yeah. When my brother passed away when he was 20, I remember Googling his name afterwards. He died in a car accident. And the only thing I found was that he died in a car accident, and then I found his old state record, like when he placed at state for track, his freshman year. And that was it. And that drove me crazy because I knew what a good guy he was. And so that drives me crazy because if his memories will only go on as long as we do, right? His immediate family.
Yeah.
You know, so as long as we pass those on, that's great. But you know, he doesn't have a book. He doesn't have a television show. He doesn't have. Now you think of. I heard this from Patrick Bet-David. Think about what you would do for what would you give price wise for like. Think of the most important person that you've lost, right? No matter who it is, and what price would you put on 10,000 hours of footage of that person that you've never seen? You know, somebody who's passed away in your life, your great grandpa, something like that, somebody who's achieved something, or even a close relative like now, somebody passed away. What would you, financially, have you ever thought about what you would give for that person? And once you think about that, you start thinking about how do I want to leave this world when I go?
Yeah. So in other words, your brother's passing sort of like it pushed you to want to set your own legacy apart from every single other person. You're like, you know, everybody's doing this, I'm going to be different. I'm going to do something else. Now, my question is like also along those lines, like, because I mean, the thing is, you know, we're all mortal here, we're all going to die.
Yeah.
But like the impact, the legacy, as you're talking about, can be imperishable. You know, it can go on forever. And like, what does that legacy look like for you?
Probably helping millions of people fulfill their dreams. Like really accomplish everything, build their businesses, help as many people as we possibly can, and really just change the world. Because I mean, it's salvageable if we teach our younger generations disciplines and things like that we've lost along the way. Because they're still out there. I have quite a few young people that are just, whoa. You know, we just we hired a 17-year-old. One of our graphic designers is a 17-year-old. Just turned 18 2 days ago, and they worked their ass off.
Yeah.
You know, so it's just
Still
amazing.
Yeah,
it's still out there. Don't lose hope. But then if you can mentor and teach these younger generations to critically think, which is a missing piece of what I've seen, if we can teach people to critically think and just make decisions, it's amazing what can happen.
Do you feel like the kind of the loss of critical thinking, is that more like attributable to like poor education, or is there something like more cultural that's behind that? That's a very good question from the aspect. I don't know if. Do you think it's generational, or?
I would have said that maybe a couple years ago. I think we became soft as a society to an extent. I think we overcorrected. How's that? I think we overcorrected. I think we went from being a hardcore place to, well, we shouldn't do this, and we shouldn't offend people, which I agree, we shouldn't offend people. But I feel like we went too far. And some of those tough disciplines that were installed in us may have been too hard. But even with when I get coached, when I seek out a coach, a wimpy coach is not good for me. I want somebody to tell me I'm being a pansy. You know what I mean? You know,
I need that negative feedback.
Absolutely. Yeah. I grew up. You know, we weren't wimpy. I baled hay, I pitched manure for that was my allowance, right?
Yeah.
So doing that, and of course I hated it when I did it, but later on in life I'm like, wow, man, I was so happy because I was fortunate enough to I'm able to thank my parents for how they brought me up and the disciplines that they put into my life. So I think a lot of that comes back to proper parenting, trying to get, you know. If you look at the statistics about fathers that are missing in situations, it's ridiculous, you know, and all the negativity, the negative statistics for that are just horrible. So we could be better dads, we can be better guys, we can be better mentors, you know, coaches, help people in that aspect, everything from football coaches on down. So there's so much we can do to help the younger generation parent better, just teaching disciplines.
Now, with running the many enterprises that you do, I'm sure on a day-to-day basis things get hard, things get disorganized. How do you personally stay grounded, stay focused, and like I'm sure a lot of people can benefit from hearing this, like what's the space in which you kind of settle yourself down and like kind of keep things in order and that sort of thing.
I love that because we probably have some similarities in that aspect. So start the day with the workout. I'd say, you know, the workout is what's going to keep your mind focused. The workout, as much as you think it is for your body, which it is, obviously, it really helps your mind too. So what I try to do is I look back at, like, if you look at a Kobe Bryant video where he talks about his training process, that's the mentality I put towards personal development. So if I get up at 4, right, and I'm working out and I'm listening to something personal development, whether it's on our Motivation Success TV channel or anything like that, or one of my hosts, or a podcast like yours, whatever it may be to personally develop, I'm starting at 4. So I'm working out for an hour with that. Then I'm going in and I'm getting ready. I'm going to go in and listen to something else and listen to more content. So every day, so if I do that all day long, if I'm doing certain things, personal development wise, that I'm growing every single day, just a little bit more, and I'm doing that practice 8 times a day. I do that, let's say I do that 6 or 8 times a day. And let's say somebody else who's in this space or somebody who's not as disciplined does it once every other day. Imagine where that goes.
That's exponential.
Yeah, that compound effect of what happens is just incredible.
Yeah, but it's the little wins I feel like people don't think about, because it's
Daily.
like, oh, the little choices that don't seem to matter, but like that builds up the momentum towards those big moments of success that people see. You know, like everybody wants to be the guy with the hand raised and, you know,
100%.
like the popularity and the you know, the accolades, but nobody's wanting to be you at 4 a.m. like getting up in the pouring rain and going to the gym or whatever. Yeah. I don't know, is the rain out in Ohio? I've never been to Ohio.
Oh yeah. Well, you're not missing a ton.
Not missing much. So practically speaking, as we close, like what are some of the things that are up and coming for you, some of your businesses? Like, I don't know, you probably have a lot to choose from, but maybe a new product that's coming out, a new like extension that you're excited about for one of your businesses. Like, tell us about what's up and coming.
Well, we're really excited. We just started doing our events live for some people and with Motivation Success TV. So not only could you turn your podcast or your idea into a television show and have it just like a podcast, but it's on 18 platforms, on Amazon, Apple TV, Roku. It's also, we could do a pay-per-view event for like your event that you have on whatever it may be. Let's say we do an event on podcasting, you could be hosting it. We could do that live, charge for that, and then we could turn around and you would be able to then have that television show or that footage and that content to repurpose. So I'm excited about helping as many people get their voice out there, but I'm also excited about that person who's 16 years old, who really wants to learn and doesn't know where to go and doesn't have the money to go out and buy courses or anything like that. If they can watch your show, watch my show, whatever it may be, and just get a little bit enough to where they start building that foundation to where they can take that next step with whatever it is, because of our show and because of our podcasts and our TV shows, then that's amazing. Or book. Yeah, I love book publishing too. So.
Oh yeah, you do have a book. What's it called?
My last book was called The Influencer, but I actually have 19 best-selling
19 books.
Yes.
All bestsellers?
All bestsellers, yes.
That's amazing. What's the most recent one?
The Influencer.
The Influencer. Okay, are you done writing, or are you gonna write more?
Not even close. I have probably...
You have another one that works right now?
Oh yeah, I have the 1 Hour Millionaire and The Platform right now are both 2 books that will be coming out soon.
The 1 Hour Millionaire. Yeah. I love that title already.
It's just about what we just talked about.
Writing a book is hard, man. I've tried. I didn't finish.
I am so happy you said that. We'll talk about that after. Okay. Because it is so easy. For those of you who say that, let's start a conversation, because I promise you we could have your first draft done and edited within a month.
All right. Well, we definitely got to talk then. All right, Dennis. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast. Appreciate it. Awesome. Enjoying this episode? Subscribe for more content on finding your own path to success. Every subscriber makes a huge difference to the pod, and we're grateful for everyone. And don't forget to throw us a classy like and comment too, to let YouTube know that you're a fan of our stuff. Now back to your regularly scheduled podcasting. All right, final interview today. Cam Walker, thanks for coming on the show. Cam, you've been behind the scenes the whole day, but now we're interviewing you about Walkthrough Media. What is Walkthrough Media?
Walkthrough Media is my social media agency. We do anything and everything social media. We do YouTube, podcasts, starting to get into TV, commercials, anything and everything.
You're based in Vegas?
Yep.
Okay, how long have you been doing this?
Well, I was doing it part-time in high school. I started sophomore year, and then full-time I've been doing it for about 5 years.
You started this in high school?
Yeah.
I wasn't thinking about business in high school. You know what I was thinking about? Well, never mind. But the point is like you've been thinking about this for a while. You've been moving this way for a while. Like what what gave you like sort of the determination or like sort of self-belief to make this a reality?
At first, I started making wrestling videos. I was on the wrestling team. I went in
Real
up to
wrestling,
Reno.
not WWE.
Yeah, real wrestling. I went to Reno, wrestled for Team USA, started putting together little compilations, and then people were like, "Hey, can you make music videos?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And then they were like, "Okay, yeah, I'll pay you like $500." And $500 at 15 is like rich.
It's a big deal.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, cool. Made a couple of them, had like $1,500, and then my mom bought an actual camera, and then that's when I started.
I feel like that's how it happens a lot of times, right? Is people sort of recognize the talent in you before you even see it yourself. Like
Yeah.
a lot of people, like I feel like have that story of like someone's like, "Hey, can you do this thing for me because you're good at it?" And then you realize at some point, like, "Hey, like I should make money off of this."
Yeah.
But for you, I know from talking to you, it's not just about the money. Tell me about like the sort of the passion you put into your work. Like, where does that come from?
Honestly, it came from video games when I was younger.
Video games.
Yeah, I always like
GTA or Halo or what?
It was like Call of Duty. You know those like montages with the snipers and stuff like that?
I wasn't allowed to play video games as a kid.
Oh, no? Well, they would make like montages with snipers, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. I want to try that. I tried it, was horrible at it, so I started to do real life stuff.
Okay.
And then people liked it, so I was like, cool.
And you, how many employees do you have?
I don't have employees, I have contractors.
Contract. Okay, so it's all like 1099, like freelance.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
I have like 4 videographers that I work with, and I have 3 editors that I work with. And then I also have my girlfriend who does all the back end stuff.
Awesome. What's the scale of your operation like? I mean, like how many clients do you work with? Like, are you like expanding? Like, are you like what kind of stage of business are you in?
We're expanding right now. I'm currently working with about 3 to 5 a month, but the maximum I've had is about 10.
10 clients a month?
10 clients, yeah.
Seems like a lot.
It was a lot. I was traveling like every other...
And these are different clients every month, or?
No,
the
same
clients. Okay.
Yeah, it was just constant travel. I mean, my girlfriend can attest to it. I was never home. It was
What are some of the
rough.
places you've traveled?
Florida. I went to North Carolina, Georgia, Texas, Washington, Oregon, Utah, Arizona, California multiple times. I went to Mexico. I was actually forced to go to Mexico.
What part of Mexico?
Just past the border. I think it was San Luis or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, they like snuck me across the border.
All right, just stay out of TJ, man. But how did you like coming from the background that you did? Like, obviously you were good at this, but like, what were some of the challenges you faced early on that like other entrepreneurs would likely be familiar with? Like, what were some of those challenges? How did you personally push through those challenges?
I'd say the biggest challenge is people thinking that because I'm young, I don't know what I'm doing.
Okay.
That's
a
like the
classic
biggest
issue.
one.
Yeah.
They would always say, oh, we're looking for someone with more experience. And I'm like, okay, well, if you want someone with more experience, they're going to be kind of stuck in their way. They're, especially like people who come from a film school, they don't like to be super creative. It's kind of like, there's this thing called the half rule with shutter speed and stuff like that. They will not break it, so they only get one type of look. If you break it and get flexible, you can get all different types of looks, and it looks pretty
So you
cool.
bring something to the table that some of these more established companies might not.
Yes,
Which
correct.
is that you are willing to try something new. You're willing to work with the client and like adapt to their vision, their plan, their goals for the project.
Exactly. And I think more people are catching on to that because like more videographers are younger now. They're not like the super old heads anymore. They're willing to...
New generation.
Yeah, they're new generation. They try new things. They blow people's head up and make it look like a bobblehead and stuff like that. It's not the same generic stuff over and over again.
Yeah, I was thinking you said people like not really taking you seriously because of your age. Like, there's actually a Bible verse that says, "Let no one despise you because of your youth." That's what I was thinking about. And like you, like for what you've accomplished so far, like it's clearly you haven't let that be an issue. You haven't let that deter you from pursuing your dream. So, what's like next for you? Like, where do you see this going?
I need to figure out a system My system right now, it's working, but of course you can't do the same thing and expect to grow. So I think that's my biggest thing right now, is figuring out a system that'll allow me to grow and still produce at the rate that I am right now.
What's the coolest project you've ever worked on?
Okay, there's two. One was, I think it was 4th of July here in Vegas, and I was in a helicopter and the fireworks were going off underneath us. That was crazy. Like, I don't really know how to explain it, but it felt like we were getting pushed around by the fireworks. And the dude that I was recording with, he was proposing to his wife.
A lot going on.
Yeah, the video didn't go very well because he didn't think it through.
Maybe
like,
the wrong time, buddy.
Yeah, we're in a helicopter, a bunch of stuff is going off. You can't hear what he's saying. So
it's kind of like the people who do like the half-court proposals at like NBA games. I always think it's like, man, it's not the place. Also, what if she says no? Then you're screwed. Right. In front of everybody. Like, dude, not the place.
No, not at all.
But so tell me a little bit about like some of the, well, that was obviously a cool project, but growing up here in Vegas, something that I found interesting about you, and I hope you don't mind me spilling this, the tea as it were, but you're obviously a very disciplined, focused guy, but you know, growing up in Vegas, we all know what Vegas is, you know, Sin City, but you don't like participate in sort of the Vegas life, as it were.
Right.
You stay on your grind, you stay focused. Has that always been you, or like how do you like push aside all the distractions that are in this this place?
I'd say my mom. My mom was a very like
disciplinarian.
Yeah, I was scared. I was scared to even like. Okay, so my mom doesn't know this, so hopefully she's not watching. But I found a beer like in the grass one day, and I was like, I wonder what this tastes like. I opened it and I thought about my mom. And I just poured it in the street because I was so scared. I didn't want like my breath to smell like beer or anything. Even when like people at school would smoke weed, tobacco, whatever, I would literally walk all the way around the campus so I didn't smell like anything, because I felt like if she smelled it, I was in trouble.
Is that like dealing with that pressure like ever been an issue for you, or
no not really, because
like
I never
the peer
really
pressure
liked
of living in Vegas around the lifestyle, like.
No, because I'm not really a super social person.
Okay.
So I was more like, I only like certain people, and only certain people get my energy.
I'd say you're more of an extroverted introvert. Is that fair?
Yes.
Yeah. So what's something that like you're really excited about that's coming up for you in terms of like maybe a project you're working on, or maybe like a side of the business that you haven't tapped into yet?
I think I'm excited about this live stream stuff, because the live stream stuff, it seems fairly simple to do, but there's a few kinks we got to work out to make sure that everything is like smooth sailing, but it seems like a lot of fun.
Well, here we are. We're sampling it out right now. Right. Outside of work, last couple questions. Outside of work, like work life, like what is kind of your biggest passion? Like what's something that you, like looking back on your life, you're like, hey, this is kind of what I want to be known by, that I want to be kind of mark Cam's legacy.
Right. I'm also a boxer, so that's probably the biggest, other than like the film and stuff. I've been fighting since I was like 3.
Really?
Yeah. So
3 years old?
Yeah. All combined martial arts, I probably have like over like 2,000 fights.
I bet that fight discipline probably carries over into like the other discipline.
Oh yeah, my coaches were no joke. I wrestled for Team USA.
You wrestled for Team USA?
Mm-hmm. Up in Reno, yeah. And yeah.
The athletic background, I just feel like it's so important. Like we were just talking on the other podcast before this with Dennis, just like the things you learn in like sports, things you learn working out, like it's just so applicable to the mindset that you have in your work. And it's obviously reflected in the quality of work that you do and the pride that you take in the work that you do now and the discipline that you have.
Correct.
Now, last thing I want to ask you is, for people who are interested in learning more about your services, more about what you do, like how do we find you? How do we get a hold of you?
So you can get a hold of me on my Instagram. It's Walkthrough Media. I'm sure it'll probably be linked down below, but that's the best place to get a hold of me, because website is going under construction.
Renovation.
We rebranded our name, so.
All right, stay tuned for the website, guys. Walkthrough Media, Cam Walker. pleasure. Awesome. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right.
This has been another recorded episode of Stay Classy Podcast with your host, Steve Wire. Thanks so much for tuning in. And as always, you can find all of our content at our website at stayclassypod.com. And thanks to our production sponsor and partner, MaxLux Media. You can find them at maxluxmedia.com. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel on YouTube. Every subscription helps and goes a long way towards ensuring that we can continue to produce content for viewers like yourself. Thanks so much. Stay classy.